Hello everybody, I'm C.W. Bear. Today I'm going to outline for you my book, The Strychnine Banjo. This is the story of two men and two songs. Both songs were composed and first performed in Virginia City, Nevada during the 1860s. One of those songs, The Pioneer Stage Driver, became the best known among Virginia City's bohemian set. The other song, The Days of 49, went out into the world and became the most influential song in the 19th century mining culture of the Far West. Along the way, we'll look at the mid-19th century minstrel banjo. During the 1860s, Charley Rhoades became the most famous professional minstrel performer and banjo player in Virginia City. He appeared during 1865 and 66 at the Music Hall on C Street, and then 67 and 68 at the original Piper's Opera House on D Street. Charley Rhoades wrote and performed both The Pioneer Stage Driver and The Days of 49. These songs were hits at locals. They made fun of and involved local people. He wrote them as comic parodies set to well-known tunes and for burlesques by the minstrel troupe of theatrical plays. Charley and his San Francisco troupe were zany. You might see the one-legged professor on the tightrope, or throw paper missiles into the face of Kitty from Cork O'Neill as she sang interminable Irish songs. Here's a newspaper ad for one of Charley's Virginia City shows. In 1865, Charley composed a lyric that became the song most remembered by Virginia City's bohemian set, The Pioneer Stage Driver, or Baldy Green. The lyrics poked fun at a stage robbery that occurred that year. Drury Wells later described performances of the song. Speaking of hold-ups, I call to mind a catchy bit of frontier balladry called Baldy Green, which used to be the most popular song on the Comstock. Charley Reed's Chicken Tamale and Daniel's Razzle Dazzle couldn't compare. K.B. Brown used to laugh and stamp his feet when he heard Charley Rhoades play the banjo and sing it. Everybody stamped their feet in those days, explained K.B. in reminiscent strain. That was before the dudes had introduced the custom of clapping. You can bet your life that anybody would have been tarred and feathered or ridden out of town on a rail just as quickly for clapping his hands as he would for wearing a swallowtail coat. Old Judge Messick and Jonas Seeley and Colonel Bob Taylor and Jace Baldwin and Roland Daggett all used to sit together in John Piper's old opera house. And whenever Charley would come out and sing Baldy Green, they'd hit on the benches in front of them with their six-shooters and call, "Bully!" until Piper would try to give them their money back to get them to stop. In 1866, while Charley and Otto performed on stage at Virginia City's Music Hall, a footlight exploded and the place burned to the ground. Here is the original Piper's Opera House on D Street, opened by John Piper in 1867 near his two-bit saloon. He seems to have opened the opera house in response to the burning of the music hall. In December 1868 at Piper's Opera House, Charley composed and sang a song that would become the anthem of miners and diggings in towns across the West through the 19th century, The Days of 49. The Days of 49 is a parody of The Old Sexton, a song about gathering the dead. Charley wrote The Days of 49 for a burlesque of Black Crook, a Faustian melodrama about gathering the dead. The burlesque was called The Grasshopper Feast. The narrator of the song is a Virginia City bummer. He bums cocktails and deals in strychnine whiskey on C Street. In the song, his name is Irish, Tom Moore. During this period, much of Virginia City's opera house audience was either Irish or interested in making fun of the Irish. The song is based on the key themes of mining culture, risk and fun, and it is a series of hits at locals. Each verse presents another local type engaged in risk and fun. So much risk and fun, in fact, that in each verse, someone dies while enjoying their risk and fun. This is dark humor at its best, and the miners loved it. Charley played accompaniment on his 1867 Dobson patent banjo.
Oh, here you see old Tom Moore, a relic of former days. A bummer too, they call me now, but what care I for praise? My heart is filled with the days of yore, and often do I repine for the days of old, the days of gold, and the days of 49. For the days of old, the days of gold, and the days of 49. I'd comrades then that loved me well, a brave and jovial crew, and all the boys that now remain, I know there is but few. They were good souls, they never flinched or never yell and whine, but like gold bricks they stood the licks in the days of 49. But like good bricks they stood the licks in the days of 49. There was Monty Pete, I'll ne'er forget the pluck that he always had. He'd deal for you both night and day as long as you had a scad. One night a pistol laid him out, 'twas his last lay out in fine. It caught Pete Shore right bang in the door in the days of 49. It caught Pete Shore right bang in the door in the days of 49. There was Poker Bill, one of our boys, and always in for a game. And whether he lost or whether he won, to him 'twas all the same. He'd pass the buck and ante a slug and go a hatful blind. But in the game of death, Bill lost his breath in the days of 49. But in the game of death, Bill lost his breath in the days of 49. There was New York Jack, a butcher boy, so fond of getting tight. Whenever Jack got on a spree, he was boiling for a fight. One day he ran against a knife in the hands of old Bob Klein, and over Jake we held awake in the days of 49. And over Jake we held awake in the days of 49. There was Rattlesnake Jim who could outrun a bull, you bet. He roared all day, he roared all night, I believe he is roaring yet. One night he fell into a prospect hole, 'twas a roaring bad design. And in that hole he roared out his soul in the days of 49. And in that hole he roared out his soul in the days of 49. There was old lame Jess, a hard old cuss, who never did repent. He never missed a single meal and never paid a cent. But poor old Jake, like all the rest, did at length to death resign. For in his bloom he went up the flume in the days of 49. For in his bloom he went up the flume in the days of 49. Of all the comrades I had then, there's none left to boast. And here I walk around the camp like some poor wandering ghost. And as I go from place to place, folks call me a wandering sign. They say it's old Tom Moore, a bummer shore of the days of 49. It's old Tom Moore, a bummer shore of the days of 49.
An 1867 Dobson patent gut-string flush-fret 5-string minstrel banjo. Gut strings, calfskin head. Made in New York by Henry Dobson, this was the first banjo with patented elements. These include the first resonator back and a top tension system. Created in 1867, this banjo came at the end of the early minstrel show era, a period that ran roughly from 1845 to 1870. In the playing method of professional soloist minstrel banjo players during the 1860s, a thimble, a sort of inverted fingerpick, was placed on the right index finger. The index finger struck downward on the melody strings. This is the sound of the professional musician's instrument at the dawn of American popular music. 1868 proved to be Charley Rhoades' last big year performing. He was dying of consumption. He didn't intend for his song, The Days of 49, to become famous. However, a month after he performed it in Virginia City, back in San Francisco, the song was picked up by fellow minstrel banjoist Jake Wallace. Wallace was the other great minstrel banjoist of the Far West during the mid-19th century. Like Rhoades, during the early 1850s, Wallace had come to California from New York where, as a teenager, he had learned the minstrel banjo. In 1853, Wallace was the first professional musician to perform in what is today Nevada. Around 1860, for 2 years, he taught banjo to Lotta Crabtree and toured with her in the Sierra Nevada. In 1863, he accompanied her as she sang Glory to Old Washoe in Virginia City. Jake played the song, The Days of 49, everywhere he went for 30 years. Jake's arrival at a mining camp with his banjo and his song became the stuff of legend. In 1905, this inspired a Broadway play, The Girl of the Golden West. It begins with the arrival of Jake Wallace at a saloon in a mining town. In turn, the play inspired Puccini to write an opera. Today, the character of Jake Wallace can be heard singing opera. Here he is as he hits the road one last time to perform in Northern California during 1911. And here's Jake Wallace about 1913, towards the end of his life. Finally, let me tell you one more of the many stories from the Strychnine Banjo. I'll read you a glowing review of banjoist Charley Rhoades by one of his big fans, the young Sam Clemens. In the spring of 1865, broke and unemployed in San Francisco, Clemens appears to have been depressed and near suicide, probably due to addiction to that popular Virginia City beverage, strychnine whiskey. After the classical pianist Louis Gottschalk came and went from Virginia City and then arrived in San Francisco, Clemens used his pen name, Mark Twain, to write a newspaper review that ridiculed Gottschalk and that lauded Charley Rhoades. In it, he compared the effects of the banjo to the effects of strychnine whiskey. Both give you diarrhea. The piano may do for lovesick girls who lace themselves to skeletons and lunch on chalk pickles and slate pencils. But give me the banjo. Gottschalk compared to Sam Pride or Charley Rhoades is as a dash-away cocktail to a hot whiskey punch. When you want genuine music, music that will come right home to you like a bad quarter, suffuse your system like strychnine whiskey, go right through you like Brandreth's pills, ramify your whole constitution like the measles, and break out on your hide like the pin feather pimples on a picked goose. When you want all this, just smash your piano and invoke the glory-beaming banjo. From the mid-1870s through the mid-1890s, whenever anyone who became nostalgic for the gold rush, or often when the pioneers, the old 49ers, got together, the song they sang would be The Days of 49. After that, almost all recollection of the song's origins, of its importance, and of these two once famous banjoists faded. The Days of 49 became just another folk song. The story of Charley, Jake, and their song, I think, is one of the most important in American music history. I hope that you've enjoyed this outline. My book, The Strychnine Banjo, contains more of the stories associated with this history. I'm C.W. Baer. Thanks for stopping by.